Hey guys, my name is Faustina, and I'm just a 24-year-old girl who has fallen in love with the writings Jesus gave to his servant of God, Luisa Picaretta, the writings he calls the Book of Heaven, the call to the creatures to the order, to the place, and to the purpose for which they were created by God. In these writings, Jesus describes the state of union with God that Adam and Eve had before the fall. And in these Vatican-endorsed writings, Jesus tells Luisa that now is a time in history for mankind to not only be redeemed, but to be completely restored. He tells Luisa that he has chosen her to be the first soul born in original sin, to be able to enter back into the state of original justice, and that after her, any of us can enter once again into this great gift as well. The state of not only doing God's will, like the saints before us, but to be able to take the next step and live in his will, which is the state of union with God that the souls in heaven currently enjoy. But now we can have it on earth too. On earth as it is in heaven. On earth as it is. Does that sound like a particular prayer that the church has been praying for the past 2,000 years? It is. Jesus tells Luisa that this gift of living in the divine will is the ultimate fulfillment of the Our Father prayer. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That prayer will not be prayed in vain. It will come to pass, and it has already begun to come to pass in Luisa and in the souls after Luisa who take hold of this gift. In these writings, Jesus teaches us all about what this state of union consists of, how to dispose our hearts to be able to enter into it, and how to conduct ourselves in it. I found these writings just about exactly 4 years ago to this day, and they have radically transformed my life. The gift of living in the divine will is the reason for my invincible joy, and I feel called by God to shout it from the rooftops. In this video, I'm going to explain what Jesus teaches us about the rounds in the divine will. What are they, and how can we do them? If you are new to the divine will, I would suggest you watch my introductory videos I made before this one, because I made these videos intending for them to build off of each other. There are links to them in the description. Alright, let's get into it. What are the rounds of the soul in the divine will? Jesus tells Luisa that the rounds are actually the human soul's first duty before God. In essence, the rounds are when the soul gives back to God the return of love that is due to him, on the same eternal scale that is due to him, and that's the part that Adam lost for us, for everything he issued forth when he spoke creation into existence. So, yeah, giving God back on a scale due to him all the love that he issued forth into every single blade of grass, every single gust of wind, every single leaf on every tree, the sun in the sky. We are created to give God back on an eternal scale all the love that is due to him, to reflect it back to him, and that's really what glorify him really means. In essence, glorify means to reflect. So reflecting back to God the eternal love that he issued forth, of course mixed with our own individual human love and the free will that is involved in that love, and that gives God immense and unexplainable joys. Okay, so this was the purpose of creation. He wanted to receive this return of love. So really it's pretty simple. The rounds are very simple. The purpose for our existence is very simple. We were created to simply exist within a continuous and ever-increasing exchange of divine love with God. But when Adam and Eve fell, everything got complicated. The human will and the divine will became separated, and so the divine will living in Adam was the only reason he was able to give God an eternal, infinite love on the same scale due to him, because when the divine will left him, all the infinite, eternal power of the divine will left Adam. And so all that Adam could do was give him his tiny, little, minuscule human love, and not married and fused with the divine will, even if Adam was trying to cooperate and live resigned to God's will, right? So he could still say, God, I love you for that leaf and for that flower, and God would still accept that as a gift of love from Adam, but it was not the divine return, the divine exchange of love, because the divine will was not fused with Adam, right? So yeah, that's what it means when the divine will separates from the human will, is that the human person is no longer able to love God in the way that is really due to God, in eternal love, right? So, yeah, when Adam fell and lost this gift of living in the divine will for us, mankind lost the ability to complete our first duty before God, which is to give him a return of love for all of the goods that he created for us. So yeah, this hand symbolizes Adam. This hand symbolizes the divine, infinite, eternal will. So the finite being married to the infinite. So Adam and the divine will were fused. They were one with each other. And so, yeah, God was in the sky on his throne outside of time, you're right, like looking down on earth, but he was also looking down at himself bilocated within Adam, bilocated within Eve, right? And so God was looking down at Adam fused and one with God, the eternal one, the infinite one, right? And so Adam was giving back to God eternal love, eternal glory and praise, fused and one with all of creation, right? Because God is inseparable from his creation, from what he makes, because he's constantly reanimating every bit of creation, right? And so Adam was able to give God back this eternal, infinite love. But then when Adam sinned, the divine will left him, and Adam was left on his own, a tiny, puny, frail, human, finite love. And yeah, Adam and Eve, they repented. They never actually sinned again. They loved God. They still did the motion of doing the rounds, of saying, I love you for all of creation, but it was not fused with the divine will. They were doing God's will. And this is all that mankind has ever known, right? Now, all that mankind can do is to try to do God's will to heroic degree even, but to not have that actual inseparability. That is the gift that was lost for us. That's the gift that has been lost for us for the past 6,000 years. The Blessed Virgin Mary is the exception. She was conceived immaculately with the gift of the divine will. But other than her and Jesus and Adam and Eve before the fall, nobody else has been able to have this except for Louisa, because it was always God's plan that mankind would return to this place, and so he chose her because she was little, and because it was the right time in history to receive the gift of living in the divine will once again. And so this is actually the gift that is being restored back to us. Jesus taught her not only to do God's will to a heroic degree, which is what the saints of the past taught us how to do, to dispose us, but now the next step is God is fusing himself now with Louisa, and so Louisa is actually able to enter back into this eternal operation of God, of this eternal giving God back on a scale due to God, the eternal infinite love that he issued forth in creation, and returning it back to him in every instant, right? And so this became Louisa's life, and this is what Jesus taught her how to do. And I'm going to read some writings from the Book of Heaven. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from Volume 12, April 8th, 1918. Returning to the point about living in the divine will, I, Louisa, was told that it was like living in this state of union with God, and my always lovable Jesus, in coming, said to me, "My daughter, there is a great difference between living united with me and living in my will." As he was saying this, he stretched his arms toward me and told me, "Come into my divine will, even for one instant, and you shall see the great difference." And side note, I interpret that to mean like he is showing her with her eyes the reality of the divine will, because he tells her she was always living in the divine will. She never left it. But yeah, this come into my divine will, he's just showing it to her, right? So she's having this vision, she's having this experience. Jesus is showing her what it is to live in the divine will. I found myself in Jesus. My tiny atom was swimming in the eternal volition. And since this eternal volition is one single act that contains altogether all the acts past, present, and future, since I was in the eternal volition, I took part in that single act which contains all acts, as much as it is possible for creature. I took part also in the acts which do not exist, and which must yet exist, until the end of the centuries, and until God will be God. And for these acts too, I loved him, I thanked him, I blessed him, etc. There was no act which escaped me. I took the love of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and I made it mine, just as their will was mine, and I gave it to them as if it were my own. How happy I was to be able to give them their own love as though my own, and how they found their full contentment and complete outpouring in receiving their own love for me as if it were mine. But who can say everything? I lack the words. Okay, so there's two things I want to focus on with that reading. My tiny atom was swimming in the eternal volition, and this eternal volition is one single act that contains together all the acts past, present, and future. Okay, so also when you hear the word volition, it means will. Volition means God's will in motion. Okay, so Louisa is experiencing in this vision, in this manifestation, that she is like a tiny little atom that is swimming in God. And there are other writings where she also describes that it's like she is a drop that diffuses, right? When you hear the words, I fuse in the divine will, you will hear people say that. And what that means is what she's describing here, like this understanding that when you are in the divine will, your soul is like a drop of water that is put into the wine, right? And it diffuses and it becomes one with the wine. And so the water is one with the wine. The water is diffused and enters into everything that the wine is, right? A drop of water becomes one with the infinite ocean, right? A drop of water becomes one with the ocean when it's dropped into the ocean. And that's the same way this union that we can have with God, with the divine will. It's like our soul drops into God and into everything that God is and fuses and becomes one with him, right? Even though the drop of water itself is still just, as she says, a tiny little atom. We are so little, we are so small, but God allows us to be dropped into him, and that fusion takes place, right? We become one with him. And the next thing to understand is that what it is that we are becoming one with. I wanted to focus on, I took part in that single act, which contains all acts. So the thing to understand about God is that when he created the creation, he lives outside of time, right? And when he spoke and said those words, fiat lux, let there be light, he created everything all at once. We experience it in the sequence of time, right? But that's just how he created it for us. He created time for us to be able to experience a progression of growth, a series of events, but in reality, there is only really one act. This is very much a mystery that it's hard to wrap our brains around. We'll never technically be able to fully wrap our brains around it, but the infinite eternal one contains everything. Like, God only ever does one thing, one act. It looks and it appears to us as though he does this, and then he does this, and then Jesus came, and then Jesus did this, and then Jesus did that, and this is how we experience it in time, or even just looking outside. Oh, the wind is blowing that way to the left now. Oh, and now that bird is chirping, and now the bird is flying, and now the bird is singing, and this is just how we experience it. But in God, it is all at once. It is all one thing. Like we all, the whole entire creation, everything that ever was, everything that ever will be, existed all at once in the mind of God, always. Everything was always in act within him. And when he brought it forth, really the creation all happened in one single instant. And by creation, I don't just mean the birds and the bees and the trees and the grass. Like, I also mean the whole history of mankind, every single person that will ever be. Jesus' entire life, his redemption, his redemptive work, his dying on the cross. Like, I mean, God foresaw that Adam would fall too, right? God didn't plan that at all. Like, we all had free will, but God, the whole thing fits in, is just... God foresaw our sins and already had the solution planned, and it existed in his mind from all eternity, instantaneously. Everything is one single act. We just experience it in time. And so when Louisa is being given this ability to diffuse into that eternal act, she's actually being given access into something that transcends time, the reality of time and space, and the constraints that have been put on our human nature. Right? Time was not meant to constrain us when God created it. He created Adam to be able to transcend time, even at the same time of him living in it, right? In performing these eternal acts. But then when we lost the gift, we lost the ability to transcend time, to be present everywhere in all places, in all times, past, present, and future, which is something that God didn't want. He wanted us to be really with him in this action and operating with him in this eternal act, even if we weren't fully conscious and aware of what exactly it was like we were doing. And this is what is now being given back to Louisa and now back to us if we dispose ourselves to receive it, by emptying our hearts and giving them to him. Like, we are able to go into this eternal operation of God, into this one eternal act, and fused one with it, like a drop of water in the wine, we are now everywhere where God is, right? And when God issued forth his creation, his divine will is inseparable from everyone and everything. And so that is the inseparability that we are also invited into. And when we are fused in one with him, we can give him back that eternal infinite love because we're right there with him, infused and inseparable from the eternal and the infinite one. This gift of the divine will, which is really the original nature that God created us with, it enables us to not only transcend time, but to also transcend space. It allows our souls to be present everywhere and always. When God issued forth the whole creation, he originally intended that man would have the ability to be present in all created things in the same manner in which God is present in all created things, right? And so, because we know that God is everywhere, right? Like, I mean, you would look at a tree, you don't say, that tree is God. We don't say that tree is God, but God is present in the tree. God is present in the air. God is present in all the atmosphere, right? Because his divine will in motion, his volition, is holding it into existence. But God wants us to be able to enter into all created things in the same way that he enters into all created things. And this was really the original purpose for creation. I'm going to read from Volume 24, September 2nd, 1928. I was doing the round through the whole creation according to my usual way, to follow what the divine will had done in it. Oh, how beautiful it seemed to me, how the divine fiat enjoyed its triumph, received its full glory, had its total dominion, and extended its life everywhere and in every place. So it is light and extends its life of light. It is power, it is order, it is purity, and extends its life of power, of order, of purity in all created things, and so with all the rest of its divine qualities. Therefore, each created thing is sacred, more than a relic, because they enclose within themselves the creative power and will, and the very life of he who created them. And while going around, I felt like loving, adoring, embracing, and kissing the sun, the heavens, the stars, the wind, the sea, because they enclosed, veiled, and as though many dwellings for he who had created them. But while my mind was wandering in the creation, my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, look at how beautiful are our works, pure, holy, and all orderly. And if we made use of the creation in order to form our veils, our vast dwellings, however, we held back from giving reason to it," which means intelligence, because the purpose for which they were created was for man, not for themselves, and therefore we reserved giving to man the capacity and reason of the whole creation, so that possessing its reason, he would give us the glory of the light of the sun, of the heavens, of the wind, and of everything else. So we placed the created things as members of man. Members meaning like your hand is a member to your body, right? We placed the created things as members of man, so that possessing the reason of these members, he would use them in order to rise back within these veils to find he who dwelled inside of them as king, and to bring him the glory and the love of these members given to him. Before I move on, I want to recap what he just said in that paragraph. He created creation to be like the members of man, in a similar way that the hands, the feet, the legs, the system of the body, the digestive system, the eyes, the the mouth, all of these organs of the body, they are the members of man, but they are not man. They do not have the reason, which technically it's not even the brain. That our will and our reason and our intellect does not exist in our brain. It exists in our soul. And in this soul, this reason is the head of man and of all of man's members. It is the reason that is animating my hand, right? My reason is telling my hand to move, and that reason is a faculty of my soul, right, which is the head of me. And this analogy, although it's not the exact same thing, it's very similar, and it really, I think it's more similar than not similar. Like, God created all of creation to be like members of man. And what I mean by man is really, in essence, the reason, the soul of man, the life of man. Creation was meant to be animated by man's reason in the same way that man's hand is animated by man's reason. We were meant to be able to go into all created things because, right, we have this ability of soul to diffuse and to transcend time and space. We were made to be able to enter into all created things, absolutely everything you could possibly imagine, and be the head of those things, those beautiful things that contain divine life, like a spark of the divine life, right? It's not pantheism. This is not saying that those things are God. They are not. There's definitely a difference, and this makes it clear. But we are meant to be able to enter into those things and be the head of those things, to be the reason of the flower, to be the reason of the sky, of the stars, of the roaring oceans of the sea, of every drop of every water in the sea, of every breath of wind, of every bird, of every beating of the bird's wings, of every coo of the dove, of every bark of the dog, of every wag of every tail, of every step of every man. In the distance between one step and the other that man takes, that creatures take, absolutely everything, all of this was meant to be a member of man. Man was meant to enter into all of these things, to be their head, to be their reason. Why? To give God back the love that he issued forth when he created all of those things. Because there is a very, very specific, and we've lost the ability to experience it. When we lost this gift, we lost the ability to experience God's love in all created things. But then when this gift is given back to us, we are actually able to reacquire the divine sight, to reacquire the divine smell and taste and touch. And we're able to see God's very specific loves that he placed in all of these things with so much care and so much intentionality. When before we were blind to it, and we lost this gift, we became blind to it. But it's little by little, like, creation is meant to be vibrant. We are meant to be able to possess all of it, to appreciate fully the divine flavor that is contained in all of these things, and to be the reason for all of these things, to give God back the love, to be able to enter into that flower, to taste the divine dose of love that God placed in that specific flower, and to give God back divine love, so that God looks down at the flower and he sees you saying, I love you, with this flower that is my member, that is me, that is a part of me, that is inseparable from me. And so it's like, I look at my hand and it's moving, and I'm giving God glory and infinite love in the movement of my hand, but I'm also looking at the bird that's chirping right outside my window, and it's just like my hand. It's no different than my hand. I possess it. I take possession of it. It's mine. My soul bilocates into the bird and is the reason of the bird, so that I can give God back that glory, inseparably from me, inseparably from God. That's in essence what this is. This is what the rounds are, making your rounds in all created things. And this is the reason why we were created, and this is the reason why all created things were created. They were created to be our members. All right, now I'm going to continue on with this reading. But in order for man to do this, and to possess the reason that suns, heavens, wind, and the like would have had, and to keep the created things as his members, he was to possess the life and the dominion of our divine fiat, which means divine will, that would give him the capacity and vast and sufficient reason for the whole creation, and would maintain the communication and the bond and the inseparability with all these members, the created things. In fact, only our divine will possesses the full reason of what it has done, and we gave this will of ours to man, that it might give him the reason of all of our works, because everything came out as orderly from us, and linked together as members to the body of man, because he was our first love, the purpose of the whole creation, and therefore in him we centralized all the reason that was needed for it. Now, my daughter, by withdrawing from our divine will, man gave a blow and severed his dear and holy members, and this is why he knows little about the value, the sanctity, the power, the light that, as members, were already his, and the divine Maker remains without the glory, the love, the gratitude of the head of these members. See then how necessary is the return of my divine fiat into the head, which is man, so as to restore the order created by us, and have the head put in its place, and the members reunited once again to the one who, so barbarously and with harm for himself, keeps them severed. Don't you yourself feel how my will alone has the virtue of putting you in communication with the whole creation, and giving you the flight? It gives you the reason of the light, of the heavens, of the sea, of the wind, and wanting to animate all created things with your voice, from the greatest to the smallest, it repeats your delightful refrain. It is I who love you and glorify you in the heavens, in the sun, in the sea, in the wind, and also in the tiny little bird that sings, in the little lamb that bleats, in the fragrance of the flower that ascends to you, and so on and so forth. It is the life of my fiat that, since it has life in the whole creation, having life in you, makes you love within all things that are already his own. Because God's divine will is inseparable from all created things, and when the creature is inseparable from the divine will, then by virtue of the creature's union with the divine will and fusion with the divine will, the creature also is inseparable from all created things. And this is the gift that is now given back to mankind. This is the gift that Adam lost when he fell. This is the gift that Mary and Jesus possessed, and this is a gift that was given back to Louisa first, and is now, the doors are open for us to receive once again. It is true, you may notice that I have a picture of Saint David behind me, the one who sang the Psalms. Sun and moon, bless the Lord. Stars in heaven, bless the Lord. Every shower and dew, bless the Lord. Frost and chill, bless the Lord. This litany of love in all created things. Or Saint Francis, he had similar experiences. Some of the saints started to have, some of the saints who were really intimate with God, they had an experience and an intuition of the reality of this, yet Jesus does make it clear to Louisa that these saints, even when they're praying these rounds, you could say, that the Psalms really are, that they're rounds of creation, like telling creation to bless the Lord. David had the intention to do this, and God accepted that prayer as a gift of love from David, right? But this gift was not actually given to him because it wasn't the right time in history. He was not actually able to transcend time and space and bilocate his soul into all created things, to be present in all created things, literally in the same way that God is present in them, and also to have all those created things present within him as his members, right? And so, yes, it's true, a lot of the saints did have an experience of the divine flavors. They were starting to have their sight opened to see the reality of God's love in all created things, right? And that is a special grace God gave them, and that is a special grace God gave the saints as they got closer to him, closer to being united with his will. However, the complete fusion, the complete consummation of that, it still had not happened yet in human history until Louisa. The saints prepared us. They got us ready to go back into that point. But we can now have this gift. We can take possession of it, and we can even bilocate into the saints of the past. We can bilocate into Saint David, right? And in the sound of Saint David's words, in the writing of his hands, like I bilocate and I fuse into these sounds, into this praise, and I bring divine I love you, divine praises. And what that does actually for David in heaven, for Saint David, and for all the saints, when we bilocate and fuse into their actions, we are giving their very actions divine flavor. We are elevating their actions to an eternal, infinite scale. And so their glory in heaven, their accidental glory, is actually increasing, and their joys are increasing. And that's why they are so happy that souls down here are going back into their acts and putting divine, infinite I love yous into those acts. Because they were not able to do it themselves, even though they would have wanted to, if the gift were available for them. And this is a great segue into the next topic that I wanted to discuss, which is the element of the rounds that is repairing and redoing acts of souls. But before I get into that topic, what does it mean to repair and redo acts, I want to leave you with some other readings that you can look at on your own. If you don't have a copy of the Book of Heaven, there's also a free PDF of it online, but some other writings that are so beautiful that describe what the rounds are. Volume 24, July 4th, 1928, and Volume 22, May 26th, 1927. Please, please, please do everything you can to clear out your hearts, to really, really enter into living in the divine will, and to really be all eyes, all heart, all ears for the divine will, to be as attentive as you can. Do your rounds. I recommend praying. I have a book that I pray with sometimes. It's called the Book of Rounds, The Round in the Kingdom of the Divine Will. And this is available online as a PDF. And yeah, there's all kinds. If you Google like divine will rounds, there's all kinds of different prayers and styles of prayers that come up. There's really no right or wrong way to do this, but I have found that being intentional and like reading or listening to like guided rounds is really helpful for me to like have that guided meditation and to be able to enter deeply into it and to like be more spontaneous and to create my own rounds and to be inspired at where the Spirit leads. But this is a book, like, I usually pray from this book. Like, I don't know, it depends, different days are different, but yeah, if I can have a day where I can start my day with this and then pray some of this in the middle of the day and then pray some of this again at night, just being very intentional whenever I can. Like, I praise you and I thank you in every work. I praise you and I thank you through each work. I praise you and I thank you to my Creator in every step. I praise you and I thank you through each step. I praise you and I thank you and I cover them with my I love you, your kingdom come, oh please let it be known, loved, and possessed by the human generations. Like, it's very long. It goes into so much detail about all the different little things, and it's important to, while it is true that we contain all creation within ourselves and we can do the rounds in one fell swoop, be like, I intend to enter into everything ever, past, present, future, to give it to God in every breath of mine, right? It's also really helpful, and there's a special grace that comes when we are very intentional and we pray specifically the rounds. So I would highly, highly encourage that. It'll definitely help you grow, and it will definitely help bring this kingdom of the divine will faster and faster upon the earth, because by entering into all creation and praying these rounds, what God is seeing, and he tells Louisa this, it's a divine army that is praying ceaselessly for the kingdom of the divine will to come on earth. And that's what we're waiting for, right, with this era of peace. But really, we are not waiting for this era of peace to come. God is the one who's waiting for us to really enter into these rounds, to take hold of this gift, to take hold of what it means to be king of creation, to be head of creation, right? And to enter into all those things and praise God, and to implore the kingdom to come down upon earth. That's the only way that it's going to come, and it will come faster the more souls enter into this life and the more souls are very intentional about praying these rounds. It's so exciting. We are the ones who are going to bring this about. It's such a privilege to be alive right now. Let's not waste it. Let's not let this pass on to the next generation to be their responsibility. Let's Let's take hold of this so that the next generation can be born into an era of peace and not have to go through the darkness. Fiat voluntas tua, my friends. Let's do this.